Good morning, members of the press. I am truly delighted to engage with you once again, and I thank you for taking the time to attend this press takeout. As you know, Sierra Leone has had the honor of serving on the Security Council for the past year. We came into the council based on our experience prioritizing conflict prevention, peacekeeping, and peace building, as well as advancing key issues such as women, peace and security, youth, peace and security, counterterrorism, particularly in the Sahel and West Africa, climate and food security, accountability, small arms and light weapons control, and Security Council reform. Sierra Leone has worked tirelessly to mainstream these issues, especially those affecting the African continent, placing them at the forefront of the Council's agenda while responding to emerging crises and current world events within the Council's mandate. In line with our unwavering commitments to multilateralism and the principles of the United Nations Charter, we have worked to reinforce the Security Council's role in conflict prevention and resolution. We co-signed shared commitments on women, peace and security, climate, peace and security, and we initiated the Joint Action Agenda for implementing the United Nations Secretary General's new agenda for peace. We have also consistently called for ceasefires in conflict situations such as Gaza, Ukraine, and Sudan, while advocating for respect for international law, humanitarian law, and the protection of civilians and civilian infrastructure. We have supported efforts to ensure unhindered humanitarian aid delivery to at-risk populations in conflict situations. A key milestone in our tenure was the historic convening of the first ever debate on the structural reform of the United Nations Security Council during Sierra Leone's presidency in August 2024, presided by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, Dr. Julius Maada Bio. The debate, which addressed Africa's historic underrepresentation in the Council, received widespread support, including the endorsement of Africa's call for 2 permanent seats in the Security Council. Sierra Leone has also worked within the A3+ mechanism to strengthen Africa's voice and representation within the Council, highlighting African issues. In what has been a particularly difficult year, the effectiveness of the Council was bolstered by the united stance of the elected members, the E10. After 1 year in the Council, despite the challenges of the global situation, Sierra Leone has remained the voice of reason, balance, and objectivity. As a small state, we have consistently advocated for respect for international law, the UN Charter, and the peaceful settlement of disputes. This has been reflected in our statements on issues such as the conflict in Gaza, the broader Middle East region, and the ongoing crisis in Ukraine, Sudan, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, among others. Looking back on some of the critical issues we faced in 2024, Gaza. We welcome the recent ceasefire deal brokered by the US, Egypt, and Qatar between Israel and Hamas. We continue to support the Secretary General's efforts and those of UN agencies, including UNRWA, in delivering humanitarian aid to Gaza. We remain committed to the call for the unconditional release of hostages and continue to call to emphasize the importance of accountability and the pursuit of 2-state solutions. On Ukraine, Sierra Leone has consistently expressed the need for the territorial integrity of Ukraine to be respected within its internationally recognized borders. It is now time to seriously pursue dialogue and work toward a peaceful resolution of the conflict. On Sudan, we have focused on the need for a comprehensive approach to the conflict, including cessation of hostilities, political transition, and addressing the dire humanitarian situation. We co-penned the resolution on the protection of civilians with the United Kingdom, which unfortunately could not be adopted due to a veto by a permanent member of the Security Council. We will continue to work with the A3 members on the next steps. On the Democratic Republic of Congo, Sierra Leone led the 1533 Sanctions Committee visit to DRC, Angola, Rwanda, and Uganda. We co-penned resolutions with France on the mandate renewal of MONUSCO, sanctions, and enhanced support for the Southern African Development Community mission in the DRC. We fully support the Luanda process and the role of the African Union mediator, His Excellency President João Lorenzo of Angola, to further engage on the latest development on the Luanda process. Sierra Leone will host an informal working lunch today for UN Security Council members, alongside my counterpart, the Minister of External Affairs of Angola. On Lebanon, we welcome the ceasefire commitment agreement between Israel and Lebanon and call for the full implementation of Resolution 1701. We strongly condemn attacks on peacekeepers and emphasize the importance of respecting UNIFIL's mandate. We commend Lebanon's recent political progress with the election of a new president and the appointment of a new prime minister. On West African issues, particularly in the context of UNOWAS, Sierra Leone, together with Switzerland, as co-pen holders, successfully led negotiations on a presidential statement in May 2024, ending a 2.5-year impasse. This focused the Council's attention on terrorism in West Africa and the Sahel, and reinforced the role of the United Nations Office for West Africa and the Sahel, as well as the good offices of the Special Representative of the Secretary General in West Africa. Members of the press, as we begin 2025, we do so with cautious optimism, driven by positive developments such as the ceasefire deal in Gaza and the ceasefire commitments in Lebanon and renewed prospect for peace in Syria. Looking ahead, in addition to continuing our work on conflict situations, in particular the Sudan, the DRC, and counterterrorism efforts in the Sahel and West Africa, Sierra Leone will focus on several key priorities, particularly during our November presidency of this year. These include youth, peace and security, climate and environmental impact of conflict, small arms and light weapons control, peace and development in West Africa and the Sahel, and harnessing emerging technologies for global peace and security. We'll also continue our established work on peace building, Security Council reform, women, peace and security, and food insecurity. In 2024, Sierra Leone shared its unique experience in conflict resolution and peace building. In 2025, we aim to focus on the future and on our youth, climate, and technology. Thank you for your kind attention, members of the press. I am now happy to take a couple of questions, if there are.
Celia Davaren, Africa Confidential. What can Sierra Leone do to prevent conflict, let's say in Africa, to start with? My second question is, do you really believe that the Security Council will accept Africa with the right of veto?
Well, Sierra Leone, like I said, has exported its experience of peace building and peace consolidation. In the sub-region, especially in the Sahel, we're engaging with member states at bilateral level and also at multilateral level to ensure that we help to bring peace about in the sub-region. It's a very difficult time. It's a very difficult time that requires our collective effort to combat, for example, terrorism, which has become very widespread in the sub-region. And within the context of ECOWAS, we're working in the Security Council debate this morning. We mentioned the need for us to have a sub-regional approach to counterterrorism. And every effort will be made to ensure that our sub-region is rid of this new scourge of terrorism and extreme violence in the sub-region. on whether or not I am optimistic about the United Nations Security Council admitting Africa into the permanent category. Sierra Leone's responsibility as coordinator of the C10 of a committee of 10 heads of state and government of the African Union is to canvass Ghana's support for the common African position as espoused in the Esselwini Consensus and the SAD Declaration. For the very first time, a debate of such nature which is calling for the reform of the Security Council, was conducted last year by His Excellency the President, Dr. Julius Maada Bio, President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, during Sierra Leone's presidency. We believe the effect of that debate has caused a global reverberation where some members of the P10 have acknowledged the need to rectify the historical injustice that has been meted to Africa by allowing Africa to have permanent seat in the permanent category of the UN Security Council. Our drive is not only to have permanent seat, but also have all the privileges that the members that are in the permanent category right now are enjoying. That will include the veto. In the instance the veto will be removed, then Africa will be okay with that based on the SAD Declaration and the Esselwini Consensus.
What do you think of a possible solution to the problems in Sudan, which is getting more serious and a huge human rights issue also in Sudan?
Well, Sierra Leone co-penned with the United Kingdom a resolution which unfortunately did not pass. Like I mentioned, it was vetoed by one of the permanent members to protect civilians in the conflict and to allow for humanitarian aid to reach the population that is at risk. Quite recently, the de facto leader of Sudan, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, visited Freetown, and His Excellency the President reiterated the need for a ceasefire, a political transition to a civilian rule that will involve all parties that are involved in the conflict, and of course calling for accountability because there's a seeming pogrom in Sudan following the difficulty in having access to humanitarian aid by people, especially in Darfur, in the Darfur region of Sudan. So every effort will be made. Sierra Leone sits in the African Union Peace and Security Council, and in the Security Council we'll continue to raise our voice for a peaceful resolution of the conflict in Sudan, for Sudan to be brought to a civilian rule. Thank you. Well, thank you.